Travels of the Ellis Arbor is a TTRPG story set in the world of Bastion using the Vagrant Sun campaign setting. Tune in for episode 45, Shackles. And so, with parting shadows and an ephemeral spirit as their guide, the crew of the Ellis Arbor trod northward to the vast plateaus that awaited them. Beyond the craggy landscape and frigid knolls of the Cobalite Flats lay their next destination, the shadowy silhouette of Midas Cairn. Fortunately, much of the murky darkness of the jungle was in their wake. Before them lie more stagnant pools of glowing water. Dotting their periphery, quaint streams of algae broke into rivers of clear water. The fetid smell of decay began to clear, giving an air of serenity, peace, and tranquility. It appeared that the northern edge of Silas Mar was more forgiving and quiet than they'd anticipated. Though Darian thought for certain that their new companion had more than a little to do with their quiet trek. The reddish-brown spores of Mor's cap gave way to white and blue lights. The spirit within their frame would chuckle and whisper to themselves, all the while scattering these fragrant blue motes. It seemed as if flowers bloomed and grass became more verdant simply in their presence. Finally, once evening turned to night and then to morning, the path began to turn into a road. Cobblestones, smooth and well-worn, signaling they had found a man-made track. It wound to their left, beyond their sight and into a narrow valley. To the right, it curled northward and toward a distant peak that crept into view. Snow and sleet blanketed their vision, but the faintest glimmer of color could be seen amidst the fog. Golden yellow flags caught in the frost-season breeze. The faintest glimmer of gold and silver, adorning what appeared to be a stone parapet. Towers upon which burning braziers lit the sierras of the Cobalite keeps. Barely an hour through the snow, and they'd be at the foothills. The resplendent citadel of Midas Cairn. Though, as rumor had told them, they'd likely find only brashness and brass within the halls of a sanctuary for thieves. How best to approach, do you think, Captain? Should we find a secret entrance into the keep?
Yes, I'm loath to admit it. It would be best if we were able to slip in unannounced. We've a habit of becoming infamous wherever we go. Not to mention, if Nout has reached the cairn before us, he may have warned the guard of our approach.
Darian caught his breath, leaning against a tree and fussing with his boots. He carried more than his fair share of water and debris and took the opportunity to relieve himself of the discomfort. Indeed, with Nout far ahead, it's possible that their entrance would be foretold. Any hope they had of entering uninitiated seemed comparably low. They had plenty of options at their disposal for subterfuge, slinking beneath sewers, entering through veil of magic, and even guile or misdirection. Nonetheless, they had little knowledge of the inner workings of Midas Cairn, and their reserves of energy were running low. Instead, the captain turned to face Mor, ushering insight from the spirit within.
We do not know what awaits us behind these walls. Spirit, care to offer us some knowledge? How best to enter the keep unannounced?
Joyfully, the creature responded.
Unannounced? Goodness, no. The watchtowers have eyes that never close, and the guard are peerless in their pursuit of harmony. The gateway is flanked by a funnel-shaped mountain pass, making vision of the citadel's enemies all but assured. I think we must, if we are to approach at all, approach in full light. Vision can be clouded, shadows can be clung to, but the eyes of Midas Cairn are matchless in their perception.
So, we cannot approach unannounced.
At that, the spirit chuckled.
You needn't worry if your hearts and minds are pure. The light of Pleiades guides the actions of Midas Cairn. Surely they will see that you and your friends are no foes. Be brave, be bold. Find your friend in arbors of gold.
The 3 remaining crew members turned and looked disparagingly at each other. Open and honest was not a color the crew of the Ellis Arbor often clothed themselves in. Perhaps it was time to add a new tool to their wayfaring toolbox. And so, as the morning light turned to afternoon, the vagrant sun in the sky began to melt the ice upon the road. Warily they trod, scouring the horizon for threats and advantage as they approached the keep. Wagons, trailers, and wayfarers, even more weary than they, marked the roads that led into Midas Cairn. As each converged to a singular crossing, they began to behold the keep in its full glory. Beyond a wall of carved stone, its surface clad in ribbons of silver and gold, they spied the castle that nestled in the mountains. Made of the same material as the cliffs themselves, Midas Cairn very much appeared as the spirit had described. Magnificent. Of course, its visage was but a front to its true purpose. Leather-clad archers hidden behind parapets and battlements. Vicious-looking characters, faces covered in weapons drawn, assessing every detail of the wagons that made their way inside the gate. At the exterior of the portcullis, a brutally tall individual stood. Even so far as they were, Darian knew this figure was abhuman. Shoulders arched like a bestial, lycanthropic creature. Ears pulled back and long, like a warped sylvan monstrosity. Eyes gleaming with an oily black shadow, and limbs that ended in hooked yellow claws. Almost breathlessly, they watched each caravan as they were searched, assessed, and then granted entry into the keep. What is that creature? Surely it cannot be one of the cairn's inhabitants. Edward turned to look at his companions, but no offer of insight was given. One by one, the crew waited in turn as they were led toward the gate. Some caravans that bore mercantile goods ushered toward a market district. Other, less savory characters were either turned away or clapped in irons for their trouble. When time came for the crew to be examined, the long-eared, bestial creature barked in their direction.
What? A myconid? We've no quarter for forest nymphs and woodland beings. Clap that creature in irons and have it sent to the dungeons.
At once, the crew surrounded Moore and laid hands upon their weapons. In response, a number of armed guards turned to face the approaching party. Thankfully, barely a few anxious moments passed before the tension was quickly released.
Carver, that's enough. They've as much reason to enter as any other traveler. Have peace of mind and heart, friend.
An elven fellow, clad in ribbons of cloth, stepped through the threshold of the gate. A hand outstretched, he encouraged the creature to calm with emotion. At once, the being known as Carver relented and allowed the crew to approach.
I apologize. We are a cautious and meticulous people. Welcome to Midas Cairn. What reason have you for entering? Please don't mind our questions, but is that myconid friend or foe?
Darian let his hand drop by his side.
We've traveled a great distance. We believe that the temple within your keep may be of use to us. We come seeking answers and research. The details are for us to know, as is the nature of our companion. Moore is as much a quality member of our band as myself. Indeed. Well, you're in luck. My name is Friedman. I'm an acolyte of the Order of Pleiades. I'd be honored to show you to the temple.
Carver spoke aloud in a vicious bark.
That cannot be trusted so lightly. I insist you at least clap that one in irons.
With a firm, patient breath, the acolyte responded to the request.
Take heed, Warden. They come to us bearing shackles of their own design. I do not believe they would come so far, seeking the assistance of the Light of Pleiades. Were they not already bound to some notion of fate?
With a knowing look, Friedman stared directly at the captain.
Pay Carver no mind. I imagine we have much and more to discuss, friend.
Travels of the Ellis Arbor is made possible by the generous support of our subscribers, followers, and most notably, our patrons. Special thanks to new and existing patrons for our Moon, Wedge, Crown, and Hex tier subscriptions. Please subscribe, give a like or a comment, follow us on Twitter, and stay tuned for the next episode. Make sure to follow us here on YouTube, on Spotify, and on twitch.tv/lonomy. Don't forget, take care of each other.